Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Juvenal Caporale. My pronouns are he, him, his. I am an assistant professor of ethnic studies that focuses on Chicanx and Latinx studies. We are honored to welcome you to our third annual Masculinities Through Collective Voices community event. This year's theme is Sacred Purpose. Shout out to all my students. Thank you for making it today. So before proceeding, I would like to invite Alvaro from our Healing Circle, Círculo de Hombres at Stan State, to read our land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Juvenal. Thank you. We want to formally and with great respect acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Yokut nations. Our campus, Stanislaus State, is built on the unceded ancestral lands of these indigenous tribes. Thank you for letting us honor them and giving our thanks to the ancestors and descendants for their constant and careful stewardship of this land.
Thank you, Alvaro. So the structure of this event is as follows. First, we will have a panel where our guest speakers will share their work and experiences. After the panel, we will have breakout rooms where you can speak with each panelist in a smaller group. Before our breakout rooms, you will have the option to choose what small group you would like to join. After our talks, we will return as a group and have a share of the things we've learned, followed by closing remarks. This community is sponsored by the Ethnic Studies Department and the Male Student Success Initiative, MSI program at Stan State. This collaborative effort not only falls within the sacred purpose objective of ethnic studies and MSI, but also those of Project 1300, which aims to increase the number of young men of color who attend and graduate from college in California's Northern Central Valley region. Adhering to the extended kinship support system tradition that was established by the National Compadres Network and the San Diegan community-based organization Iscali, 5 individuals, including myself, created a Círculo de Hombres, or Healing Circle, at Stan State to improve the educational outcomes of underrepresented students. The purpose of the Círculo de Hombres at Stan State is to offer a space of dialogue and support for self-identified men within an academic space, consistent with the scholarship on the intergenerational healing of young and older men of color. This safe, brave, and inclusive space was created to comfortably share our gifts, baggage, cargas, or barrier elements, challenges, and well-being. Humanhood, respect, and unity are our objectives. Sorry about that. Given young people of color continue to face systemic issues that dehumanize them, liberatory praxis and indigenous epistemologies are imperative for their healing and rehumanization. In recovering your sacredness, ancestral teachings for today's living, Maestro or teacher Jerry Theo maintains that in every healthy community, historically and traditionally, there was a sacred tree where people would gather. Not only did this tree connect with everything in the universe, but also served as the focal point or altar that connected the energy and life of generations. Today, gatherings take place in many forms, including but not limited to a sweat lodge, synagogue, church, mosque, community center, etc. From the teachings and traditions that emerge from these ways of life, people have brought these customs into their homes to keep them connected to their sacredness and that of their relatives. For this reason, many families have an altar or a sacred space inside their homes that serves as a living symbol to remind them of principles and ancestral teachings that help them achieve balance, connection, and harmony in all their relations. Whilst almost universally, indigenous peoples recognize that all creation has a spiritual origin that generates life, many people at times have found themselves in a place of darkness or feeling disconnected, and they have sought to restore their well-being and fulfillment. In times of darkness and hopelessness, people often tend to forget about their health and blessedness. Consequently, ceremonies, healing circles, and ancestral teachings serve to remind us that we are not only made from the same elements of the universe, but also can embody light and share it with one another. According to Dr. Ricardo Medina, sacred purpose within indigenous wisdom and teachings acknowledges the sacredness of purpose, viewing it as an individual's reason for being here. It is the individual and collective responsibility to find and use each individual's sacred purpose. And above all else, purpose keeps us connected to all things sacred. Similarly, within Western research, there is a construct of purpose in life, and it has shown significant implications for our lives, consisting of psychological adjustment and well-being, resilience, personal development, identity development, hope, life satisfaction, empathy, gratitude, pro-social, moral action and civic engagement, generosity, substance abuse recovery, meaning in life, and more. Hence, because human beings possess an interconnected relationship with the world around them, and everything is infused with divinity, as noted by Dr. Medina, sacred purpose refers to one's sacred reasons to add and contribute to the world. Maya Nahuatl cosmologies have taught us about the duality of life, precisely that negativity cannot exist without positivity, and at times people in light and people live in light and other times in darkness. Maestro Tello argues that out of fear of darkness comes cycles of pain, shame, abuse, addiction, and fear, which are the cycles of imbalance and disconnectedness that stagnate many of us and sometimes hold us frozen. As a result of such disconnection, we may commence practicing harmful patterns where we hurt our others and ourselves physically, socially, mentally, and emotionally. Indeed, ancient teachings such as Intloque Nahuaque, the interconnection to all that is near and far that is sacred. In other words, being one with the Creator, God, the great universe, or a higher power can help us connect and reconnect with our sacredness. Within this process, we must acknowledge and accept that we are part of this divinity, and that we must not measure ourselves by the wounds that we carry, but by the sacredness we possess inside ourselves, inside our spirits. We must trust, connect, and remember that we carry medicine, and that we can uncover, recover, and discover our sacredness and our sacred purpose once again by living in the present and accepting ourselves as blessings. Today, the Ethnic Studies Department and MSI at Stan State bring you a panel of experts who engage healing, re-indigenization, and rehumanization in their works. These scholars, educators, practitioners represent the fields and disciplines of Chicano and indigenous art, K-12 higher education, Joteria studies, and Chicana Latina feminisms. Collectively, some of their works address the intersections of indigeneity, muralism, curriculum and pedagogy, racism and anti-racism on college campuses, critical race theory, and community organizing. In sum, the individuals who comprise this panel are a living testament that men of color can heal, rehumanize themselves, and be rooted in their sacred purpose. Please give them a warm welcome. Thank you, everyone. I would like to invite the interim chair of the Ethnic Studies Department to say a few words about our community event. Dr. Rose, please take the floor.
Thank you, Dr. Caporale. Welcome, everyone. Bienvenidos a todos. I'm very excited to welcome you as the interim chair of the Ethnic Studies Department at Stan State to our third annual Healing Masculinities event, which Juvenal Dr. Caporale established during his first year as an assistant professor here at Stan State. And especially in light of everything happening in the world, which I really do believe reflects that internal guerrero or struggle or war, right, on an individual and collective level. This is exactly why we really prioritize, we uplift, and we invite everyone to join us in events that center our healing and our sacred, intrinsic, medicinal, right, natures, And I also invite everyone to think about what you're about to hear and how you're about to grow from the insights and the experiences and the expertise of our panelists about masculinity as sacred and the sacred masculine energies that all of us contain to some degree. And so with that, I'm really excited to really sit at the feet of these wise kind of medicine men, as I'm sure you all are. So without any further ado, we'll get started.
Thank you, Dr. Rolf. I would also like to invite the MSA coordinator to say a few words about the MSI program. Sergio, you're muted.
Can you all hear me now?
Yes.
Awesome, great. Sorry about that. So I was saying good evening. My name is Sergio Cuellar. I'm the Male Success Initiative Coordinator here at Stanislaus State. On behalf of MSI and the Warrior Cross Cultural Center, we are honored to co-sponsor the Healing Masculinities Through Collective Voices event. We invite you to listen and share your stories of healing that support men to fulfill our sacred purpose and paths. The MSI program is focused on supporting our male identifying students of color through their college transition, through mentoring, healing, and community building. We strive to inspire transformative learning and provide holistic supports to reach our North Star of improving retention and graduation rates for male identifying students of color. Events like this, the Male Healing Masculinities event, our Círculo de Hombres, and our Brother to Brother Healing Circle help us to reach our goals by providing our male identifying students of color a space to find and build community where we can share and work through our common struggles and share the cultural lessons and practices that have been passed down from our elders and our ancestors that guide us in finding our true selves. We know that this is important as part of our culture to infuse the culture right into more than just the academics, to make sure that our students are successful in transitioning from to the institution and through the institution and onto their careers and into their adult lives. And so we are excited to be part of this work and thank you for allowing us the opportunity and honored to be part of this event.
Thank you. Finally, I would like to ask Dr. Medina if he could give us an opening blessing for our community event.
Yeah, well, I'll do it like a little grounding, my brother. A little grounding and a little intro, you know. Want to say good evening to everyone. You know, I feel real good being here. You know, so many good words are being shared and folks think really highly of me. It feels like, you know, I just want to say that feels real good. You know, feels nice, made me smile, you know, made me feel like important, you know. And I also want to just say that, you know, I'll also bring a lot of humility here. You know, I want to say hello, good evening to my uncle, my tío right there, my maestro, Guillermo Aranda, you know, tell him good evening and gonna offer these words, maestro. I hope that's okay, you know, do that, you know. I want to do something real simple with this opening. And, you know, this is a tradition, a teaching, a practice, as you said, right? Things that belong on that altar that allows us to feel real good and feel real connected and feel real balanced. And this teaching came from my uncles, you know, my tío right there, Aranda, and my tío as well, Jerry, and my tío Maestro Montoya. And they talk about there's this teaching, right, of how you open a space is real simple, 4 directions and up and down. And so today, in order to, you know, there's nothing more than I want for this space to be for every single person right here to leave today feeling a little better about something in their life. Maybe feeling like something they have a little more clarity, or something they feel like they have a little more gratitude towards, or a teaching that really resonated with them, that came in a good moment, right? And so to do that, right, we'll do these honorings, right? These connections of these 4 directions and then up and down. and to start that, right? And so with this opening right here, we're going to start with that west direction. And that sun, I'm here in San Diego, Kumeyaay land right now, and that sun just set a little while ago. It reminded me in that west direction, that's where things come to that end. And water is very connected to this direction, as well as our feminine, right? Our woman nation is very connected to this. And I realize when we talk about water and we talk about feminine and woman nation, we realize that we can't do without, right? Our world cannot do without that woman energy, that feminine energy, that woman nation. Makes me think about my mom today. Makes me think about the sacrifices and the life giving that she offered. Makes me think about my wife, right? My partner. Makes me think about good relatives that I have, aunties and tias and cousins and sisters and colleagues, right? Want you to think about that for a second. Think about all that good that came from that direction, that feminine energy that you carry, that feminine energy that helped you in your life, right? And what we do is we just honor that direction, and we say, welcome, right? Welcome. And asking all of us to bring all that good energy that we have from these directions and our ancestors and our relatives that are in these spaces that connect with these energies. Think of a name, right? I think of a person, I think of an image, right? Makes me feel real good in my heart, connecting what I'm doing and the reason why I'm here sometimes to these individuals, right? We're going to bounce from, as we realize where we're going, that in these four directions, there's the in-betweens as well. And so realizing all of that energy that comes from the in-between as we go from that west to that east direction. When we talk about sometimes these gendered directions, and this east is where that sun goes up, the reminder of that every day is a new day, that we have an opportunity to start again, to try again, to get up, to dust our feet, to dust ourselves off. When something happens and we fall, we can get back up. This concept of resilience, right? In this direction as well, we honor and acknowledge that there's that male energy as well, that it exists in us, right? And also makes me think of people in my life, my dad, right? I have my dad who crossed over, and makes me think of all the sacrifices and who he was, right? The good teachings and the challenging teachings, but nevertheless still teachings, right? I think of my uncles, I think of my brothers, I think of my teachers, and I think of a lot of good folks that come from there, right? And so once again, I want you to think of a person, right? Think of that, of a teaching, right? That comes from that energy. Maybe it's you, connecting with yourself. The theme of this is these these masculinities, right? These healing masculinities. So looking in that direction today, honoring it, saying thank you and welcome, right? Taking us to now to the north, and the north is a direction that we honor our elders, right? And so thinking of our grandparents, right? Thinking of our those elders that are the ones, I think of them in the parties that sometimes they sit by themselves, right? And we have to put those reminders to go and sit next to them and honor them and learn their stories and talk with them, make them feel real good, visit them, treat them real well, take them a good plate of food. And so we have that elder direction as well. In that direction, we also have our ancestors, the ones who've crossed, really also honor all those maybe in this past year or through the years, right, who've been in that space, that have touched our lives, made us feel real good and important, right, helped us out a lot. I'm gonna keep going through. We'll take us to that south direction. That south direction is that children. I always talk about this because I work in education. I always talk about many times this direction is the reason why we're here, right? To impact and create new tomorrows so that the new generations, those 7 generations beyond, right, can have good lives. So I think of all those children, right? All those kids. Maybe you have a kid, right? I have some as well. And thinking about them, sending them good energies, thinking about them and hoping they're smiling and singing a good song or playing a game or having some fun or learning a story or doing well in school, hoping that they feel good in school, hoping that they have friends and hoping that they have a teacher that really likes them, and welcomes them. And so we look in that direction as well, realizing that there's a lot of young people today. We don't need to go too far just to turn on the news to realize that there's children, right, that need our advocacy, that need our voice, that need us to continue to ask questions and fight for change, right? For that children nation as well. And we're just going to keep it real simple as well. We go up, Father Sky, and we pay attention to that, realizing our higher self. We're connected to that circle of life. And we go down to Mother Earth as well, in that direction in Mother Earth, all that comes from it, all that life-giving, reminding us, right, about growth, reminding us of unconditional love that comes in those directions. So just offer those in a good way, say good evening to every single one of you, and reminding us that in those directions, sometimes when I'm having a hard time, I think about what can I do, which of those directions really represents and reflects what I'm looking for. And put it out there, and sometimes in some words, or just even facing that direction, or just being mindful, a lot of intention. So opening it like that, brother, passing it back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Medina. So now we're gonna move to our panel. I just want to say that I just met Dr. Orozco, but I was very impressed with Dr. Orozco's work. He's one of our panelists, right? And I felt like I knew him. I knew, Dr. Orozco was perfect to come to speak to us, especially to, my community organizing class. Welcome, Dr. Orozco. So the other folks, right? Maestro Aranda, again, I've shared ceremonies with them. He was one of the founders of and some of you have done research on this topic, right? One of the founders of El Centro Cultural La Raza. You can go check out his murals. Beautiful work. Our circle in San Diego, in Iscali, wouldn't be where it's at if it wasn't for Maestro Aranda. So welcome, Maestro Aranda. Again, Ricky, Dr. Medina, it's like a brother to me. He's an older brother. I give him that respect. He's been there. We blood, sweat, and tears. So welcome, and it feels like I'm spending time with my brother. I don't have an older brother, but he's like an older brother. And last but not least, Dr. Cabrera, another brother. Feels like part of my dissertation committee, but he also feels like an older brother, and he knows it. Again, so you can see their work, right? I know them on a personal level, and it's just great to share space with you. So now we're going to move to the panel, to the panel, right? And these are the questions. So I'm going to share them in the chat, right? So that we can all be on the same page. These are the questions that I want them to answer, right? And so that we're all on the same page, right? So the first, I want to open up with Maestro Aranda. Maestro Aranda, what challenges did you experience in your life that led you to a healing path? And feel free to answer which question you feel more comfortable with, right? And within your personal and or professional life, how can we help young people access healing and fulfill their sacred purpose?
Gracias. Challenges. It seems like there was a whole series of challenges throughout my life. My early years, running around the streets, wondering where life is really taking us, having to leave my community to join the service to get away before I end up in prison. Education, all of these things were challenges. My experiences in the military, experiencing the racism there, woke me up a lot. Allowed me to reflect back to my time running around on the streets, and then coming out and seeing what was happening with the farm workers, wanting to do something. Something was calling me, involving me, and my art came in about that time. I had studied art a little bit at City College, and pretty soon people were asking me to do images of Benito Juárez and Pancho Villa, Emiliano Zapata, I got involved in organizing because I felt that something was not right. And art was the way that I came into it. And it was through art and that opened up you might say, a desire in me to learn everything that I could. And so I pursued every facet of art, especially if it dealt with traditional ways. That started me on a journey. That journey took me into ceremony. Everything that I've learned through my life, through these last 50 years, has been through my life experiences. I, as an artist, as a danzante, as a jeweler, as a person that works with clay, I've always invited young people to participate, to become a part of the dance group, or to come and join me on this wall to paint. And with our dance group, I invited these young dancers to come and paint, painters I invited to come and dance. And as they got older, I introduced them to the Sweat Lodge. I got involved in the Sweat Lodge 1970. And after about 10 years, an elder turned it over to me, gave me permission to go ahead and conduct that service. So art, culture, like we hear people say, la cultura cura, culture heals. I've seen that. I've felt that. I've felt that in my own personal life, and I've seen it in the lives of other people. I remember when I first heard the drums of Danza Azteca, I felt something in my heart vibrate, a flame. And I felt that at that time that there was a connection between our ancestors and ourselves. Nowadays, I'm finding and hearing a lot about how we carry the trauma of our relatives, of our grandparents and great grandparents. I felt these things, and these things are encouraged me or motivated me to learn what I could and share with the young people that always seem to gather. They want to know what's going on. So I continue that to this day as much as I can, involving people in ceremony, in painting murals, or in dance, in whatever cultural traditional aspect I can. No sé if I answered your questions there, Juvenal, but if you have any specific questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Thank you, Maestro. So again, so as the structure of the program goes, we're gonna have breakout rooms where then you could go ask more personal questions in a smaller setting. So now I want to ask the same questions to Dr. Medina. If you can please speak on these topics, Dr. Medina, what challenges did you experience in your life that led you to a healing path within your personal and or professional life? How can we help young people access healing and fulfill their sacred purpose?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to definitely try to address both, and I want to start with the first question, which is like what led me to my healing path. And I think what I want to do is talk about like what is the healing path, right? And one of the things when I think about this healing path that I'm on, right, because I don't believe there's a finish line, in at least in my case, that this healing path is part contemplative, right? And so there's this part of a healing path where I go inward, right? A lot of it's cognitive, a lot of it's in my thinking, right? And I'm going back and I'm thinking and right, trying to think, but the healing path is it offers that, right? But I think in addition to it, there's this physical element as well that's beyond thought. And so I think about the healing path that I'm on is also one that is trying to continuously ground my physiology, right? It's when I say that is that it's trying to create a balanced nervous system, because in a balanced nervous system, how much more clarity do I have to a lot of things in my life? But it's not only my nervous system, right? I think about my digestive system. I think all the systems that exist in my body, right? That when those things are working, and that's when we see la cultura cura, which is everything within us, right? We have that healing element, right? So looking at those balancings of systems. I also think of that there's this spiritual as well healing journey that I'm on, and the spiritual is a spiritual cultural, which that does is that is a like an I don't know if you all know what an antenna is, because I don't know, like back in the day with the TV, when you wanted to get a good picture, you had to move the antenna around and it'll give you a real clear picture. When I think about the cultural and the spiritual, I think about an antenna that really allows this connection, right, to my ancestral wisdom, right? But it also, that healing path also allows me to tap into what we look at today is the things that have happened to us that might be in those genes, right? The things that are called epigenetics, right? Where we like that trauma that's passed on, right? So that cultural and that spiritual healing path allows me to tap into that. And then the last one is that there is a collective path that I talk about healing that is really rooted in liberation, right? Which means is that I also have a healing path that is really about advocacy, agency, being in solidarity with and fighting with community around liberation and justice, right? And so I wanted to put those elements out. So to me, that is a healing pathway, right? And so now the next question is, what helped me get there? And I do think that challenges have been so powerful of teachings. And in the work, I think that challenges are definitely allow us, if we look at them as a teaching, allow us to really connect, right? But today I want to talk to you about maybe not a challenge. I want to talk to you about something that I feel that we have the capacity is sometimes is us being a better listener. And when I'm talking about being a better listener, I'm talking about the doors that continuously open around us that we can start to listen a little bit more to and connect with and walk through. And I don't know about you, but sometimes doors open for me and and maybe I don't walk through right away. And guess what? It opens again down the road and it opens again. My life has been very much like that. I see myself, doors continuing to open. I always think about this. It's those ancestors pushing that door open. And so I want to today focus on that. Yes, I definitely have had critical teachings, but I also want to focus on the fact that it is because I think that I have my healing pathway, I think, is one that allows me to also be continuously reflective of doors that are opening and I don't walk through every door, but I think there have been some very powerful ones. And sometimes people are doors, right? Meaning that it's individuals who have pulled me up, right? Dusted me off in my life, said something real good to me. Sometimes it was some words that somebody said that was pivotal, right? It was somebody reminding me that I'm a good person, that in me I'm good. It's just that I have to find ways to live through that goodness, right? And so nevertheless, and so I already kind of felt like I spoke a little bit too much, but what I will say is that how can we help young people? I think what we do is we go back to what I just shared, is connecting folks to healing pathways. And those healing pathways is we have to make sure that we create spaces in our lives so young people can be introspective, We can go inward, we can journal, we can spend some time out in nature, we can be reflective of who am I becoming, and whatnot. The other one is that we have the ability to learn those grounding tools so that we can balance our system so we can feel good, right? And then the other one I spoke about is that we have these cultural and ancestral wisdoms, like songs, like these that opening, right, that allow us also to regulate and also connect with that ancestral wisdom that is in our genes thousands and thousands of years. And lastly, as well, is that we have the ability to see that our struggle is connected to the larger struggle, right? That our suffering is connected to suffering that exists all over, and that we connect it in that journey. So I'll put it in that way.
Thank you, Dr. Medina. Wow. All right, next questions. This one's go to, again, similar questions, the same questions to Dr. Cabrera. What healing, what challenges did you experience in your life that led you to a healing path? And within your personal and or professional life, how can we help young people access healing and fulfill their sacred purpose?
And you're going to make me follow Dr. Medina? Man, you're setting me up, bro. That was fire. That was fire. I appreciate that. Some of the stuff actually, I had some notes because the thoughts that I wanted to have were already covered. So some of this is going to be a little repetitive, and some of this is going to be my own. But we sometimes repetitive messaging is important because it can really emphasize how critically important that is. And so I'm going to start like I think we almost missed a question for this discussion. And it's kind of implied in what we're talking about here. But I think I want to be clear about that. We're talking about creating a healing space. But remember, we only need a healing space to the extent that harm has been done before that, right? Like if I have a cut on my arm, I need it to heal. I don't need to put Neosporin on my arm if I don't have a cut that's already there. And so then we have to be honest about where do these wounds, where did this hurt, where does this harm occur? And so if we go back to that, I'm really compelled by the way that David Avalos in his radical reconstruction of the Latino male, which is should be required reading for everybody. He talks about, and I want to kind of unpack this idea. He talks about the self-inflicted wounds of patriarchy. And sometimes he misses that it's largely white. Well, it's patriarchy, but there's largely a whiteness embedded within that as well. And in many respects, our young men today and people of my generation as well have been given this false bill of goods that, hey, it's really, like being socially dominant is a great thing. And let's try to be like the man and be up there in that space and emulate these toxic images. And I think that was really where I learned a lot about a lot of the harm that was being done and a lot of the harm that I had experienced. But here's the key component. Just because you have experienced harm yourself does not therefore give you the right to harm others. It becomes a call for self-improvement and healing in this space. And I had a really big aha moment when I was an undergraduate, when there was this one cat in the Bay Area who had been organizing with Cesar Chavez, and he was giving a talk trying to really talk about the things that you didn't really see for Cesar Chavez, and he'd be like, yeah, the dude loved playing pool and he thought he could dance, but he couldn't dance for nothing. It was a cool little rap. But the thing that stuck with me the most was that there was a speech that Chavez gave, and it pissed off a lot of the farm workers because they were organizing, and he said, we need to take a time out here. Just because the grower is emasculating you on a consistent basis does not give you the right to go home and beat your wife. Does not give you the right to go home, get drunk, and yell at your kids. And they got really upset about that because it was like this. I mean, it's one of these call-ins to the community. but it was necessary because it was exactly what we're talking about. You have this systemic oppression being, this constant both racial, the white supremacist and emasculation occurring all at the same time. And these guys didn't have any rooting in it, and they would take it out because they weren't in a healing space, and they would take it out on those who were around them. And then through that, I had to start realizing, I had to start reflecting on my own personal life and my own personal praxis, because on the one hand, I love my dad a lot. And at the same time, he was a very imperfect version of what it means to be a man. And then I had a massive existential crisis when I had my son, because I realized the exact same thing that I'm talking about my dad, he's going to be experiencing with me. But it doesn't necessarily mean that this progress is for naught. As a matter of fact, I am almost morally obligated to be in a healing space to do better because I want to do better by him. And we have to, and that becomes that loving critique in these situations. And so one of the things that has really helped me with this has been in being involved in more collective organizing. And that's really a space. It's not just a space a la Paulo Freire, where that by engaging in anti-oppressive collective praxis, that we rehumanize each other in the process. That's one core component of it. And by being in community, by exploring the interconnectedness of each other in this mass movement, we have to have accountability at the same time. And so when you screw up, you get called in, and there has to be accountability for that. And I think through these different processes of rehumanization and movement, what Dr. Medina was talking about, the quest for liberation that we never actually get to, but being involved in that process of critical social analysis, collective organizing, and self-reflection, and doing it as a constant process, that we actually do engage in healing in that space by doing that. But again, it requires a certain amount of vulnerability, as well as a certain amount of trust in each other, that people are, because again, someone says something critical of you, a traditionally toxic masculinist response is, oh, that cat's just trying to get over on me. And instead, we have to retrain our listening, as was previously said, to be able to engage and say, no, this person is trying to improve me. This person is trying to lift me up, not get over on me. And by reframing it in that way, it allows us to grow as people. And I do want to modify one thing that was said earlier in terms of looking for a pleasant space. Sometimes those growing pains are extremely exactly that, painful, but it's necessary. And what I find interesting is that we have some of these young cats who will just kill themselves at the gym and go to wrestling practice and cut weight and just do all the traditional masculinist things. But yet, when it comes to the pain of dealing with a real apology and atoning for harm that you may have done to, like, the mujeres in our community, they're silent. They can't do it. They crumble. And so and that's one of the things that we have to be able to do. I think my generation has to do better for the next generation, is to be able to allow for emotional vulnerability and to be able for people to be hurt and unsure, and invite them into these spaces where they can actually grow as people and be connected. And through that, they actually engage and do a better job than we did. Because for me, it happened very late. For my dad, it happened even later. And hopefully for my son, that it can happen a lot earlier. And I'm seeing that in this generation. That's why I have a lot of hope for the future in that sense. Not in some sort of wishy-washy way, but in a very critical way, that we are consistently doing better, even if we haven't necessarily gotten there. And so I think in many respects that also requires us to inviting youth into these organizing spaces, which is really, really tough, because youth will do some wild things, and that's okay. And right now we have a sit-in the College of Education over some professors that got put on administrative leave, and it is guided by the students who are in the College of Education. I'm having to completely revamp my role. My role is to step back, to offer guidance when it's asked for, and also just be physically present. And in those respects, allowing the students to lead and being able to do that, they are actually creating a healing space amidst incredibly oppressive circumstances. And then it becomes my honor to be there. And again, I can contribute when my number is called, and I can step back when it is that when it's their time to shine. And trying to figure out that balance is an ongoing tension, but that's the beauty and the tension and the problematics of being human. And so I embrace this incompleteness and always strive to be better and more fully whole, even though I never actually get there. So that's sort of my overall approach to this work.
Thank you, Dr. Cabrera. I usually don't like to speak in between. But I'm gonna share some things, and I'm very, I talk to my students about some of these things, right? I remember when things were going on in my life at one point, right, a while back, and I didn't know how to deal with them, and so in many ways, I embodied my work. If you don't know now, you know. And I couldn't handle the situation. I called one of my elders and I just asked to, and I was talking to him, and I just told him like I want to make some changes. I need to make some of these changes, and he basically informed me that the darkness is always going to be there. We embody light, we embody darkness. It doesn't go away. That's part of what makes us human. And here I am, he's one of my elders. I look up to him. He's my teacher. And I had to embrace that. I had to reconcile with that idea that we have to, everything that you are, right? The light, like they say, the good, the not so good, and the not so, I don't want to say ugly, but it's all there. It makes us who we are. And we have to reconcile with those. Now, what I've learned is you have to learn how to manage these things. And the more healthier you are, the more you focus on your healing, the better these things come out. Because when people don't address their contradictions, when they don't intentionally address their issues, it comes out in different ways. And so this is the onus that we have as human beings. You have to put these things in place or they will get the best out of you. And so these things I'm still learning. And I'm going to echo what Dr. Medina said, what Dr. Cabrera stated, that these are going to be ongoing, especially for somebody like me who was wounded, right? And wounded others along the way. So now we're going to take it to Dr. Orozco. What challenges did you experience in your life that led you to a healing path? And within your personal and or professional life, how can we help young people access healing and fulfill their sacred purpose?
No, thank you. And thank you for the invitation to be a part of this space. I'm joining everybody here today from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm originally from Iowa, so I grew up in the Midwest. And I'm actually gonna share a picture real quick. I'm gonna share my screen. I think I can share my screen, yeah. So I just wanna share this real quick because for me, as I think about the question about challenges, I think I go back to what Dr. Cabrera said about harm, what harm has been done to us. And for me, I go back to the little child of myself, right? Like, as you can see here in the picture of me in 1995 and 1999. And so part of the reason why I always begin with these pictures is because when I think about trauma and the trauma that I've held in my physical body, but also in my thinking about my own gender and my own masculinity, I go back to really thinking about how I come into my queerness as a Joto, right, in this world. And I use that word, I name myself a queer Latino individual, but also Joto. And part of that is because there's been a lot of trauma that I've experienced because of my sexuality, particularly growing up in the Midwest, where for the most part, I grew up in a very Latinx community. But part of my own development process was having to suppress that part of myself, right? Having to suppress my sexuality in ways that were harmful not only to me, but also to my own like community, right? In terms of how I thought about community. And so I've come to realize that a lot of the healing that I'm doing now is unpacking that hurt and that trauma, that silencing, the suppression of who I am, in ways that I didn't know I was carrying it, right? In different spaces. And so for me, like, I didn't come out as gay until I was 22, until I was about to graduate from undergrad. And part of that is because I thought about my sexuality in a deficit perspective, where I was like, if I name and come out to my family, my friends, I don't know how they're gonna react. I don't know if they're going to, disown me. I don't know. Obviously, as a child, I experienced a lot of violence, right? Because there was this assumption that I was queer, but no one ever really named it. I knew I was queer from the age of like 4 or 5. But for me, the fact that I named my sexuality once I was going to graduate from undergrad made me realize that I had been holding on to what I thought was a compensation of success in order to compensate for my sexuality. That I would tell myself, if I achieve all these things, if I get a college degree, if I'm involved in all these student organizations, if I'm seen as a leader, right? And that is what, to me, my perspective of being not only a man, but being a queer Latino man on campus, even though in that time I wasn't out as queer or gay, to me, that's what it equated to, right? And so part of my my harm and my hurt was the constant suppressing that I did within myself, but also the continued violence that I engaged in as I sought out this notion of success and achievement in order to be able to say, yeah, I'm gay, I'm queer, but look at everything I've done, right? And even going into my master's program and then even into my PhD, part of what I've have come to realize is that I've been using a lot of these accolades as a way to really not have to engage with the healing of the harm that I've experienced, both in my familia, right? From my homophobic dad when I was growing up, to my homophobic, uncles, aunts, community, that, folks that I call my familia, right? That I call my friends. But part of that was because I didn't feel like I was able to name who I was in that time. As I think about now, I've been a part of a really strong community of queer and trans Latinx people who are called the Mujeristas in Las Vegas. And the way that comes into my life is that after I received my master's in Florida, I went to Las Vegas and I worked there for 2 years. And I came into a community of queer and trans people that I always say required me to really disengage from respectability politics around my own gender and sexuality, right? And so that's when I started to name myself Joto, started to use terms like Joteria studies. I know you mentioned that at the beginning. And so for me, part of that was having to unpack the way I've been socialized in terms of what it means to be a man, but also what it means to be masculine and what it means to perform my own gender and my own sexuality, right? When I think about now going back, I live 4.5 hours away from my familia. This is the closest I've ever lived in terms of since I left, to begin my academic journey. And part of what I think about now is how I'm kind of learning how to be a Joto in ways that I didn't have as a child. And for me, that's part of the healing process that's happening right now, is that when I go home, I am unapologetically queer, I'm unapologetically Joto, I show up, I name things. And part of that is because I have learned that I have the agency to be able to do that, but also I'm able to walk away when I feel like I am being harmed or not being included in a space, right? Which can be difficult with familia. And so for me, the way that I've gotten to this point is being a part of queer and trans Latinx spaces. And I'm very unapologetic that that is the community that I'm building with, right? And the ways that we push against patriarchy, heteronormativity, right, is that I am building worlds with queer and trans people, and more specifically, queer and trans Latinx people, where we're able to really hold the space for each other in ways that I've often felt that heteronormative Latinx spaces haven't been able to do for us. And so for me, when I think about the question about the youth and how are we engaging with the youth, part of my work is, you know, and I'll talk about this in our breakout session, is that my work is around identity and sociopolitical consciousness development of queer and trans Latinx college student activists. And so I see the ways that these individuals have and are continuing to engage in building kind of spaces that account not only for their lived realities, but also a politics rooted in intersectional feminism, right? And part of that is being able to acknowledge how we think about not only our racial and ethnic identity, but also our gender and sexuality in different ways, but the ways that we also have to challenge sometimes, you know, our elders in the ways that in their thinking, right? And how oftentimes, even though our elders have paved the way for us, there's also harm that sometimes is done because of their own ways of thinking about patriarchy and heteronormative, you know, ideals and stuff like that. And so part of my healing has been really thinking about the intergenerational organizing that we are able to do, specifically within queer and trans Latinx communities. And so I'll leave it there for now, but I definitely welcome folks in the breakout group to ask questions about anything that I shared.
Thank you, Dr. Orozco. Beautiful. Two things that I definitely want to say, just, you know, one is that I've learned coming to Stan State, right? And I think I've been very explicit with this with my students, right? That for the longest time on my way to success, I didn't focus on healing. I was so busy trying to leave the hood and my past life, you can say, that I was just, you know, skyrocketing to you know, make it out from the barrio, right? And so I never focused on healing. It wasn't until recently that I walked on this journey. So I want to just mention that this is something you have to be intentional about. This is something that you have to walk the talk. It's not just enough to just to know it, right? Because I knew it. It wasn't until I was doing my dissertation and I interviewed 50 of these men that I realized how screwed up I was. Because for the longest time, I was thinking I was all good because I knew these things, I understood them. But it wasn't until I was able to look at myself through them that I realized that I was possibly even more screwed up than them. And so now healing for me has to be intentional. I have to talk it, I have to walk it right. To set an example, you must lead by example, and thus be the example. Second, I want to echo this, right? If find a community. If you don't have a community, if you can find one, do what you got to do to make it out the game. Whatever it is you got to do, right? And if you can't find one, then make one. When I was in the process of creating, you know, because part of the reason how I ended up at Stan State, right? I was told, you know, just whatever it is you're doing over there, come bring it over here. So part of that was creating a círculo, and it was hard. I was freaking out. I had to talk to the elders. I don't know if y'all remember. I've talked to some of you, right? I was freaking out because I know the responsibility is something that I didn't want to take on because I know of it, right? You're in a position where you can help individuals and you will impact their lives, shape their lives one way or another. So I asked another one of my elders, right, what to do in this process. He was very explicit. He said the healing doesn't come from you. It comes from the creator. All you do is hold space and you let them do their own healing. And it's something between them and the creator. So that was just one burden off of me that I was less to worry about. And so that gave me some peace. And now I understand my role. I'm just here to hold this space, to have this conversation, right? And we can't save anybody, right? We can help them. But in reality, really, we have to learn how to help ourselves, right? And this is why it's crucial to have these conversations, because sometimes the truth is we have blind spots, or we're not conscious about some of these things, right? And so by talking to people, because we're mirrors to each other, you might be able to see yourself a little bit more clearly. Somebody's going to say something that is going to impact you or shape you, or allow you to see what somebody's been trying to tell you and you just haven't been listening. So we're doing pretty good on minutes. Before we get to the next process, is there anyone from the panel that wants to add something, any pressing, any last points you would like to make before we go to the next stage of our event? Okay, perfect. Sounds like a plan. So now we're gonna open up the breakout rooms. Viv, I need your help. So we can please open up the breakout rooms, and you can choose to attend any of our panelists' breakout rooms. And again, this is a time where you can ask more personalized questions or personal questions, whatever. You just have a conversation, and we do have guiding questions. Alvaro, if you don't mind sharing these questions with our community.
Would you want me to share them right now?
Yes,
Yes.
so we have guiding questions in case, if you don't know what to ask or anything like that. We just created some guiding questions.
Cool. So one question is, what healing practices work for you, or do you think about starting? And our second question would be, what steps can we take for collective healing to fulfill our sacred purposes?
Thank you, Alvaro. Okay, so after we meet with each group, with each panelist, where they're gonna come back and share what it is that we learned. Perfect. Thank you, Viv.
I'm not
That's awesome.
seeing the breakout rooms still.
Juvenal, when I was teaching earlier this afternoon,
Mhm.
and I had been able to create breakout rooms in both of my classes, but then when I tried to create breakout rooms during the end of my class in the afternoon, I wasn't able to do it on Zoom. So I don't know if there's something technical happening with Zoom around creating breakout rooms. I know I had the same issue earlier this afternoon.
Give me 2 minutes and I'll try to reopen it.
Okay.
Well, that's not good, but let's just give it some time. So it might be a technical issue then.
Mm.
Okay, yay. Perfect. Thank you. We can see them now. Thank you, Viv. Awesome. All right, class, let's just, sorry, class. Let's go to these breakout rooms and I'll call you back when this is ready. Thank you. So, Andre, just go where it says breakout rooms and it should be available, and just click on the one you would like to attend. Thank you. Thank you, Andy, for clarifying it.
Well, Bernal, I don't see where I should go.
You don't see a breakout room? Then maybe if, let's see,
Mm,
in the bottom of the Zoom menu,
Participants, chat, shares, record, show options, reactions, more. Breakout rooms.
there you go. Click where it says breakout rooms, and then your name is the third one from what I see.
Okay,
All right, Maestro, see you shortly.
okay.
Gracias.
Bernal,
Yes, Alvaro.
you're so the questions that I had, those are supposed to be shared now.
Yeah, those were the guiding questions, right? So if students didn't know what to ask, those are some of the things they can think about, right? So that was the purpose of sharing that.
I thought they were gonna be used when we brought it all back together.
No, this is my bad. Sorry for not explaining it correctly.
Yeah, so you caught me off guard. I was like, well,
Hey, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
bro.
I should have clarified.
not you. It was just a miscommunication. We're good.
Thank you, Alvaro.
Yep.
Maestro, were you able to? Okay, I think he already left.
Yeah, he got it.
All right, cool. So y'all feel free to join whatever group y'all want, unless y'all want to stick around right here. Let's see. Were they able to find? Yeah, it seems like everybody was able to find it, unless folks right here haven't. Any questions, y'all? Sure, Viv, that's fine. Thank you, Viv. Viv, so I'm gonna be switching from Dr. Medina's and Maestro Aranda's room if you need me. Cool. You can always just text me. Thank you, Viv.
Danza or dance, and also other cultural practices as well, like ceremonial ones. And so there's so much healing that happens in these spaces. Talking circles is another one, that are these cultural rerouting, regrounding traditions. Now I can talk a little bit about drum and song. And so a lot of the spaces that I'm in men's group, cultural groups, traditional ceremonial groups, there's a lot of song and a lot of drum. And when I think about drum, I think about that heartbeat, right? And the heartbeat is one of the oldest ways that our bodies have been able to find regulation. And what I mean by that is, right, when we are in the womb and our body and we're sensing levels of stress or threat, what is it, that heartbeat, right? That heartbeat that's there, that we hear, that we feel, regrounds us. And so it's actually a regulation, right? A tool that we have available to us. And songs do very similar things, right? And so a lot of traditional songs, the words that are being said, the tones that are being said, what are those things are doing is it's regrounding us. And if you will, like, I know this might be like a really like abstract thing for you to think about, but and I'll give you another example of this when we talk about like these cultural ancestral teachings that all of us have, right? Song, drum, dance. When I'm thinking about this is that if you were to think about like if you were just to think about like within you are all of these I guess you could say blockages. And if you were thinking about like communication where different parts of your body are trying to communicate with each other, and there's blocks, and those blocks are because it could be because we are eating foods that are, not like the best, or we are hyper stressed out because we're in final season, or maybe beyond, right? Maybe there's other things going on in our life. Maybe we're not sleeping. All these things, right, are blocks. And when we think about these songs, right? These songs can make us feel a certain way, bring happiness, make us feel home, make us feel community. And what happens is some of these blocks start to clear up. So our body starts to talk to each other and work with each other. That's how I understand like la cultura cura, that we heal within. The other thing I'll talk a little bit, and I'm going on already too much. I want to create a space for you all, but there are so many things that culturally and ancestrally that are available to us that now like it's being marketed. So for an example, I'll give you this example, like grounding, right? The earth, taking your feet off and walking on the earth and grounding yourself, right, is such a process that allows your physiology of your body to heal. So I have a daughter who's 20 who tells me, Dad, I'm so stressed right now. I have feelings of anxiety, and she goes, and Dad, I can't focus on things, right? And so I say, you know what? I said, I'm going to remind you, right? I'm going to remind you of what is available to you. Remove yourself, go into nature, take your shoes off, walk on the ground, what that earth does, right? And once again, this is not my perception, right? This is science, right? That tells us, these are our cultural traditions that tells us these things. That's the same thing as what dances does. It's reconnecting ourselves, regrounding ourselves so that our systems can find balance. And that's when we talk about this physiological healing. Fire does that as well. So I'll give you an example. I had an elder who was talking to me the other day, and he was telling me about the fire. He says, are you having, or if you know anybody who is having, and when I say an elder, he was a Dene Navajo elder. He was in his 90s. He says, if you ever talking to a young person who is having issues around depression and having issues around anxiety and having issues around feeling really bad about who they are, he says, introduce them to have a relationship with the fire. And he was saying that fire energy, you can look at that fire, you can introduce yourself, you can talk, and you can ask, and that relationship. And so once again, some of us might feel like, wow, that's a trip. Like that's really like not the way I kind of do things. But once again, these are these ancestral teachings that are available to us that allow healing pathways. So I offered some. Right, talked a little bit about it, but I'd love for any of you to talk a little bit about maybe what you're finding is offering you, right, some healing practices that are helping you, and love to hear them, or even asking a question maybe related, but
And so instead of doing the individualized, we need to offer a more productive masculinity that is interconnected in collectives, that is willing to do the work without getting the recognition. And that becomes the spaces where we transform our youth by doing that and modeling that. Now, of course, I am fully aware that I'm completely hypocritical here because I have the floor in front of 100 people and all this stuff. So I get that, but these are the fraught contradictions that we deal with on a consistent basis. And so those are some of the core issues that I would throw out there for y'all. So now that I have talked way too much, please let us collectively meditate on the core questions. And what are things that you have seen? What has been your healing process? What healing practices work for you? Or are you thinking about starting? And what steps can we take to collectively for collective healing or to fulfill our sacred purposes? What have been things that you, as people who are here, who are invested in this work, the people who are going to do the day-to-day work without getting the recognition for it, what have you been doing? What have you been thinking about? What are you pondering? What are you struggling with right now? I saw Alejandro's hand go up really fast, but I don't know if that was a mistake. All right, Maribel.
I know I wanted to raise my hand because everyone like talks at once, so I was like, let me wait and see. But I know for me personally, I'm kind of at a halt because I don't know what to do. I know I've first realized that there is this generational trauma, and like you guys were speaking about earlier, about like seeing our relatives and our grandparents and just how that's affect maybe like my mom, my parents. So I've tried therapy, I've tried like seeing about grounding techniques for my personal healing journey, but I'm at a halt to see what's there to do because the healing journey, you can't do it for a person. They have to go through that personally. So just kind of see how I can help myself be able to further heal, specifically also without being in a like quote unquote safe space where I'm able to further heal.
All right. And there's those tensions. And that's you hit upon a really important issue that a lot of times because the elders in our families, and I'm not trying to speak out of turn, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, just an honest assessment of where we're at. That I mean, if you look at the trauma that our grandparents and our great grandparents had to go through just to survive, and the consistent human indignities that they had to tolerate, and in order so that we could live right now, it's incredible. And at the same time, they will still sometimes end up using that trauma inadvertently to harm us in that process. And you're right. Yeah, I don't mean to be too blunt, but you ever tried to get a 70-year-old Chicano to go to therapy?
That's not gonna happen. What is therapy?
Exactly. It is funny too because, you know, like, but I think that one of the things too is also about doing better by the next generation. Like it's a very, very, very common uh, sort of colloquial, cultural joke about fear la chancla. And it's one of those things that gets funny and we all kind of know it. But one of the beautiful things about it is my son gets the jokes, but he's never going to fear la chancla in a real life. And I take a lot of pride in that. And is that transformative in and of itself? No, but it's one important step. Because otherwise we just end up replicating the things that have come before us. I will say this: he's amazing with the chancla when it comes to cucarachas in Tucson. He is just a, but that's different. That is different. ¿Qué más? What else? What else are you all thinking? What else are you struggling with? Again, just if you want to be like, hey, because Maribel, I appreciate it. You said I am doing this, but I don't really know. That's a vulnerable space, and I appreciate that and value that and honor that. Anybody else having some thoughts on these situations? Obviously, you're having thoughts because you're in this space.
Out. Then I came out to my siblings, and those were the only people that I really came out to. Like after that, I just begin to really walk in my truth as a gay Latino. I didn't feel the need to have to tell people like, oh, I'm coming out to you, I'm doing this, right? Especially with my friends on campus. It was kind of like, well, I'm this, and if you see something different, it's because I came out, right? But I was still socialized in a way to perform in very like respectable and heteronormative ways of how we view sexuality. So it wasn't until I went to UNLV where I met the Mujerista community, in a very unapologetic community, where I started to really, really think critically about like, how do I want to be queer? What does it mean for me to be joto? What does it mean for me to engage in joteria, right? Like even using the word joteria, joto, like yesterday I wore a shirt que decía maricón. Like those are things that I could never fathom growing up. Like it's so like, what? But now I just feel so free and so unapologetic to be able to name that, you know, part of myself. And so for me, that's been my process of that. I'm still doing the healing. I'm still doing the unpacking of the ways that my familia socialized me into very heteronormative ways, and also the trauma and the hurt, right? When, you know, some family members would say like, stop acting gay, or you're not this or that, or, you know, like very, especially for my father, there's a lot of trauma there for my father, because my father was he was a patriarch, right? Very abusive patriarch. And as the oldest child, I also experienced different levels of treatment from my father. And part of the healing that I'm doing now is unpacking like the generational patriarchy that has been passed down to us, and really challenging what it means for me to show up as quote unquote a man, right? But even more so as a queer man, as a queer Latino man in my familia. Virginia, I know you have your question, then Hannah and Viviana.
Yeah, I found very interesting what you mentioned about being apologetic, and how sometimes being apologetic may not be a priority, right? Because you're in survival mode. And I agree. And what that made me think or wonder, it is if we need to expand our understanding of what it means to be unapologetic, right? Because I totally agree, and I think that we cannot ask students to be activists and resist when they are just trying to be okay for the day, right? But at the same time, I think that it is important for those students who are in the survival mode to be apologetic, right? And apologetic in another way, that it doesn't necessarily involve being resisting or being an activist, or but I'm wondering if that unapologetic expression, it can be about even letting their mind be free, right? And by doing that, themselves to self-affirm in the space, because part of that survival mode, I think that it is also there in some way, because we are, I mean, I think that we all have it in that space, in that state of fear or anxiety, or what else, like fear, anxiety, depression, right? And but the more that we dare to start also practicing that self-affirmation, or even a validity to our thoughts or our ideas, right? It gets you out of that survival mode, right? And you start seeing the value of who you are, and you start practicing that self-affirmation every time that you allow yourself to be unapologetic, maybe not initially in your actions or being advocate for others or for you, but even just being unapologetic and expressing your idea about a topic, right? Or expressing your desire about what you want and what you don't want, right? So, I mean, just to kind of like summarize it, or
I came out of that sweat. Like I came out of that sweat lodge and I felt like a fog was removed from my eyes. I stood up. I grabbed the side of that sweat lodge and I pulled myself up, and that's when I looked and I saw all the greens of the mountains were beautiful, the blue of the sky, so clear. And it's like I'd never seen that before. And at that moment, I felt something inside of me. And we hear a lot about that internal fire. That fire lit up. It like it nurtured it. It gave it that what it needed in order to awaken it. This fire within me was started so small, just a little feeling. And it grew so much that I had to stand up straight and tall because it just, the impact of it within my chest, my heart, it just lifted me. So I've had a lot of experiences like that. One time I was working with clay. I was making vases. I wanted to make one of each of the 4 elements: earth, water, air, fire. And I'm working, and I think I started out making this vase, one of the vases, and I think it was my initial thought was water. But as I'm working this vase, and I'm thinking about it, and I keep thinking about the air, about the wind, because it has the same movement, And I've been sitting there on the side of this little hill where I had this little lean-to, small community. I even moved out of the city, okay, to get away from it, because we used to talk about getting out of the belly of the beast. That's how we saw the system, a beast, and we're caught in its belly and its entrails. And so I'm on this little side of this hill thinking, is this water or is this air? And all of a sudden, this wind came in. I heard this, I felt it, came from my left side. I looked up, and as I looked up, across this little small valley, and around the side of this hill, I saw like a dust storm coming. And all of a sudden, this dust storm was so powerful, it was knocking the oak trees over. The oak trees were flipping roots over and over. I saw a small house, a hogan on one side, on the side of a hill, flipped off its foundation and was rolling up the hill. There was a small orchard and down in this
Hey, Viv,
Ready?
yes, you could, yeah, we're, for the sake of time, you know how we roll. I gotta shut off these tears a little bit. Hey, Diana, it's all right. We're gonna close it and we're bringing everyone back. So no worries, Diana. Sorry about that. You're good. I'm glad you were able to make it. Ryan, I see you as well. Drake, Rafa, thank you for coming. We're almost done. You know I like to keep y'all on time. Yeah, I just want to make sure everyone's back before we get started. Perfect. Okay, so now we're moving to the segment where we're gonna have a share back. Welcome back, everyone. So this is our final part of our event. We'll be going by each group, and you're allowed to just say what you were thinking. This is a chance where students just share back what it is they learned. If something touched you, this is that moment. So if we can go, who was in Maestro Aranda's room? If you can please share your thoughts, your experiences with the rest of us, that would be great. Thank you, Mary.
My thoughts and my experiences, making that connection, searching it out, involving yourself in cultural or traditional activities. Like Medina was saying, what did he call them? Healing paths. Okay, they're there. If we don't know of any, that doesn't mean they're not there. So I think that was pretty much. I shared some experiences, personal experiences. People ask me why, or if I ever have doubts, or about the path that I'm walking. And I shared some experiences that reaffirm in me all that my elders told me when I first started this camino, this road. I hope.
Thank you, Maestro Aranda. Anyone else from Maestro Aranda's room that would like to share? I see you are writing in the chat. I was there when he was sharing a story. Beautiful. If anyone would like to say something. Maybe they're in a quiet place, Maestro Aranda, but no worries. I was reading some of they wrote that you're an amazing storyteller and was great to listen, felt like talking with an uncle. Another person wrote, I would like to think, that Aranda's an incredible speaker with an amazing experiences. Okay, thank you for sharing. So now we're gonna go with the next group. Anyone who was in Dr. Medina's room, would you like to share some of the things you learned, how you felt, anything? Yes, Martin, please.
Hey, how's it going, Professor?
Welcome.
Definitely what I shared was his point when he made about the doorways of people are doorways and they lead to many opportunities and offers, but also lessons as well. Not necessarily there's bad doors, but there's lessons within them, and that's what I learned for sure.
Thank you, Martin. I see Maribel also has her hand up. Maribel, please share.
I know we were all kind of speaking about a similar topic about not only having your faith in like the creator God, but also being able to make this connection within yourself or within other communities. So I personally am religious, but to know that, it's not just because we're talking about religion that we're able to find this healing path, but just in general being able to find it anywhere.
Thank you. Yes. Very nice. There is an intersection between religiosity and spirituality, right? But I do want to highlight there are distinct concepts. Anyone else from Dr. Medina's room who would like to share something, to have a share back moment? And
I would like to share.
yes, Jasmine.
Okay. Sorry, I'm all over the place.
It's
Okay.
all good. Love the background.
My mom is the creative designer in our home. But I really appreciate Dr. Medina's words. I thought he carries a lot of wisdom, I really just talking about like the doors of opportunity and everything like that. Something that's really comforting for me because I am a Christian and I do believe in just having that community and that relationship with the Lord. But something I really like is not only do you find community like in your church homes and everything, but finding healing as well in it, and also being able to find healing as well in different communities. We see in the Hispanic culture, finding communities there in school, depending on your personality and everything, there's community everywhere. And I think it's really comforting too, because, like something in the Bible, how it says like, we weren't created to live this life alone. We weren't created we were created to have relationship, community with people, and that's what we were designed for. And so I like knowing that, that we, not only is it just like in my background with religion, but just to know that we have a sense of community here, and just hearing your guys' stories, your backgrounds. I'm very thankful. It's an honor and it's a privilege to be able to hear the Hispanic cultura, especially when it comes to men. It's comforting to know that you guys are breaking the generation of the men, that the machista era, and so I thank you guys for that, and thank you guys for taking the time as well to open that door for all of us to expand in the way we think of just one way.
Thank you, Jasmine. Really appreciate it. I see Maribel has her hand up. Maribel, if you would like to share something before we move to our next group.
I meant to put the clapping emoji because I really second that. I do really appreciate that, you guys are male figures, because I feel like a common thing as well is, maybe possibly not having that father figure, or feeling like you have this negative bias that, they're all machistas and they're not able to like be able to see that they have this trauma that they can heal, and to see that you guys are here, these speakers that give us this knowledge as well, is just amazing. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Maribel. Beautiful.
Hey,
I want to see something real quick. I go to church. I go to ceremony. I'm part of AA. I'm part of NA. I need all these different modalities to heal. So and I don't see them as being mutually exclusive. Some people do, I don't. I need everything and anything I can possibly get. So just throwing it out there. Dr. Medina, if you want to add something before we go to our next group.
Yeah, I want to offer this because I want to share this as a reflection, it's kind of related, but what I want to say is that I want to tell you this because there's levels of vulnerability. The other day I was in a circle and I apologized to my son. I have 3 kids. I have one who is he's 17, and I apologized to him in front of everyone. I said, son, I'm really sorry that you had a very stressed out version of a dad. And compared to I have another one who's 11. And I apologize. And they talk, and he's like, man, they say, you had it lucky. And I apologize him because I said, you had a very stressed out dad. And I want to tell you that the stress was the numerous stressors that not only existed in the present, but it was things I've been carrying. It's things that I worry about in the future, all this stuff. And what it did right to my nervous system is that it didn't ever allow me to be fully present with my own kid. And the reason I'm saying this is because I think we talk about healing, and there's super numerous ways of healing, but I want to tell you that if we have the ability to sometimes just start with trying to find ways to balance our nervous systems, then we can be such a different human being to the people in our lives that are around us. That simple step of doing breath work, taking some time for ourselves, right? To being in community, right? To those kind of aspects, to tapping into some of these cultural traditions that we have. Like many families are making tamales right now. How much healing goes into that practice? It's people who are talking, they're singing songs, they put the music on, they're sharing, they're using their hands, then they're touching masa, the corn. I'm just putting it out there, right? But what I want to say to you all is that I don't want to keep going, but I want to say is that one of the best gifts we can give ourselves today in this moment is a balanced nervous system, and that will immediately show up in our interactions with our loved ones and those of us around. So we can keep going deeper, but I just want to put that because it's available to us. It's accessible to all of us. And I'll tell you this, that lastly is that it made a difference. It will make a difference, and it made a difference in, like I said, me in the life of my kid, and I was stressed out because I was doing writing, and I was all this academic stuff and all these things like that, man, and realized that that gotta take some time for myself, yo.
Thank you, Dr. Medina. So for the next group, would anybody like to share what was discussed, what was felt in Dr. Cabrera's room?
I'll jump in if I may.
Yes, Tuesday.
Yeah, Dr. Cabrera, not to knock, and I definitely want to discount anybody who is a person of faith or someone who believes in God, but he opened up the space and allowed it so that in a real practical terms, for people who don't have that kind of spirituality, for people who don't experience things like that, there's still ways to feel validated. There's still ways to feel like, your purpose in one divine sense or another. And just connecting with people and just connecting with communities, being part and being present is enough, is doing that as good as you can do it. As good as anybody of any person of faith, you can still, with your actions, make just as much of a difference. And I appreciate him for putting that out there.
Thank you, Tuesday. When anyone else like to add on that? Yes, Kirti, please.
I also want to agree with that. It's like it's not excluding others as well in the same process if you have a belief or not, anything. At least we're, connecting on a humanistic level where we have like more common like togetherness. And saying that you're not saying that you're totally fixed doesn't mean that you're fixed at all. There is still room for improvement.
Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you. All right. So now we're going to go with Dr. Orozco's group. Would anyone like to share what was felt, what was experienced in Dr. Orozco's group? Emma, please share.
I thought he brought a very real perspective of what it's like to grow up as someone who's queer in a person of color household who may not entirely be like accepting of your identity. I I could tell he really cared about the questions that people were asking, and he wanted to help. Even now, like he's asking in the chat, like giving his socials, you could tell he really cared and wanted to help people who were going through the same things. And it was just a very like safe and open environment, I feel.
Thank you, Emma. Mads.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
So I just wanted to add on to that. It was very safe and very welcoming to talk to him. And I think that as a queer person, I was able to be seen in a way that I haven't been seen before. Whenever I have a conversation about the LGBTQ community, and it was just very informative, and I appreciate it.
Beautiful. Last but wow, all right. Let's see if we can get them all to Viviana, please. But that's it, because with time. Viviana.
Yes, I would like to thank Roberto Orozco for sharing his story. Personally, for me, I related a lot to what he had to say. Being Hispanic, Latina, I had to grow up with my mom like calling, so I have queer relatives. She would call like them jotos, and I would feel very like embarrassed or sad. But she never mentioned that up to them. She would just like personally say to me, and trying to come out with her being dismissed was really heartbreaking, because I always looked up to her. We were always like best friends, and being dismissed really hurt. But growing up, learning that other people have the same experiences, I can overcome that, and I can find my own community outside of that. And I came out to my cousins, and having them accept me was really important. And being bi, people say, oh, you don't have to come out. If you find a man, you know, you fall in love with him, you don't have to come out. But that would be like dismissing part of yourself, and like it would be like not being true to myself, and then not being true to the community. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Beautiful. Kaylee, quickly, we're running out of time. I'm sorry to cut people
It's
off.
okay. I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed that how he talked about survival mode, because it's true. You're like focusing on like just surviving and like just getting out of there. But then you also have to realize like how you were talking about healing. So then you also have to heal and do survival. And it was just nice to have him like talk about his experiences, and that how he's just like, it felt like a safe space basically.
Thank you, Kaylee. Miriam. Oh my. we're gonna have to stop in 1 minute, y'all, because Dr. Maestro Arana has to leave, and he's gonna sing us a song. Miriam, please.
I just want to expand on what Kaylee said. I really appreciated Dr. Orozco's words. And I also wanted to touch on the point of like being unapologetically yourself, and especially like because it's really hard to do something like that. And I think even trying to be a part of a community, like I know in my own personal life, sometimes I always dismiss the idea of being a part of some community because I felt like I hadn't discovered my own yet. But I think he made a lot of good points about how whenever he became involved in a community, it really helped himself and helped him with his own identity as well.
Thank you, Miriam. Haley, 2 sentences if you can.
I just really like how he taught us how to pretty much be ourselves and just to go on with it. But yeah, there we go.
Thank you, Haley. Awesome. All right, Maestro Aranda, if you can please close us off with the song, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you. I want to do a song. That's a part of my process too. I'd come across these groups, people singing traditional songs. I see us all as indigenous people, Mexicanos, wherever we are from. We're indigenous people, and searching those roots. It was through songs that I first started. This song I want to do is called, I refer to it as a rebirth. I learned it as a death song, but I called it rebirth because so many of us, the society is so afraid of death, you know? But yet we celebrate it as Mexicanos, as indigenous people, we acknowledge it. It's a part of life, you know? A part for us to be reborn, something has to die, philosophically, emotionally, not so much physical. I'm talking about, you know, we leave a part of us behind in order to move forward. And so that's what this song is. It's done 4 times. I do the verses 4 times. One for each of the 4 directions and the 4 elements, earth, air, fire, water. Okay. And I don't know if the board is too loud, but I'll do it. Rebirth, new beginning.
Thank you, Maestro. Thank you for his beautiful song. On behalf of the Ethnic Studies Department at MSI at San State, we would like to thank you for making it to our event. Thank you. Have a good rest of your evening. And I just want to say a few words. Be kind, let your light shine, and don't stop spreading loving kindness. Thank you.
Whoosh. Thank you, bro. Appreciate those words.
Thank you.
De nada, you know it, Ricky.
Amazing work, Juvenal. Seriously.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor.
You're welcome. Tuesday. Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you,
it,
Nolan.
Juvenal. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Alvaro. No, thank you for showing it. The more the merrier.
Yeah. Nice meeting everyone.
Alvaro, we wanna meet you down in SD, bro.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was out there just a couple weeks ago. I was out there for the YMOC. The Young Men of Color
Okay.
Consortium. It happened at San Diego State. I was just down there. I should have stopped by and see you. That's my fault.
Yeah,
I should have said,
bro.
what's up?
Absolutely, man. Look forward to the next time.
Yeah, I'll see you guys pretty soon. I appreciate all you guys, Roberto, Nolan, Juvenal, Ricardo, Sergio.
I swear, Alvaro's got to be my primo somehow.
We gotta be related. Yeah. But
You'll
I
see him
appreciate-
around. He's up and coming. Thank you, Alvaro. Take care.
I'll see you
See you
guys.
soon.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Maribel. Thank you for participating.
Gracias, Juvenal.
Virginia, good seeing you. Yes.
Muy buen
Gracias.
trabajo. Cuídate.
Igualmente. I'll keep in touch. Thank you. Good
Yes.
seeing you. Okay.
Thanks, Juvenal. Thanks for everything. We'll connect.
Yes. Gracias, Sergio. I have a surprise for y'all.
Oh,
I don't want to spill the tea, but I have a surprise for y'all.
no, I'm
A
excited.
la otra.
Have a good night, everybody. Cuídense.
Thank you, Dr. Orozco. You brought it. Students connected with you. That's awesome.
Yes, and I send my email if anyone wants to connect outside of this.
I'm gonna have to bring you as a guest speaker, FYI. I already, maybe you three. You three are gonna be the next ones next semester. Be on the lookout.
Right.
You're gonna talk to my class, and I'll invite all my classes to come to that class. So
Yeah.
I'm just putting it out there.
And we can have something for MSI too if you want.
All right, there you go. Perfect.
All right, cuídense.
Gracias.
All right, bro.
Hey, Ricky,
I'm out
thank
too.
you.
Yeah, good one, brother.
Thank you,
Appreciate
bro.
you all.
Hey, if you have a chance, I'll text you tomorrow. Let's see if we can connect quickly. It doesn't have,
Absolutely. Yeah, especially if you're coming into town. I don't know if you are, but if not, text me, bro.
Sounds good. Thank you, brother. Already. Well, Viv, thank you, Viv. There's no way I could have done this without you. You already know. I appreciate all your help. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. I don't know what happened to the breakout room. I literally,
You fixed it though. That's what matters.
yeah, I was like freaking out because I had it set up before the our event. So I was like, what happened? And I did like 4 times when everyone was like, oh, we can't join. So I was like, whatever. But I mean, I think you did really well. It's funny because students always hold on.